What if Obi-Wan saved Anakin from falling to the dark side? I think he had two chances in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, to actually bring him back from the dark during their fight on Mustafar. During these two moments, Obi-Wan let his emotions get the best of him, which never really happens to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's extremely good with dealing with his emotions, but this was a very extreme circumstance. The guy he basically grew up with has now fallen to the dark side and done some terrible things. One of those moments that he could have saved Anakin is this one.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, then you are lost!
Instead of him saying, well, then you are lost, he could have said something else to actually get Anakin to continue talking and talk him down and bring him back. I think the other moment is during the very iconic moment whenever they exchange the words right before they fight, and Obi-Wan says, I will do what I must.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
If you look at some of the other fights that Anakin / Darth Vader has with people he cares about, when they tell him they will not fight him, things go very differently.
I won't fight you.
You have to remember, at this time, Anakin felt like the Jedi just completely abandoned him and did not care. So when Obi-Wan does that, it just breaks him. So let's say Obi-Wan does have those conversations with him and brings him back to the light. He's going to be completely disassociated from himself and be so upset realizing the things that he did, not only to the Jedi, but to Padme. Once he's calmed down, whether it takes place right before their fight or towards the end of it, they go back to Padme, and when she comes to, he has a very long conversation with her where it just furthers his journey back to the light. They would discuss a lot of different things about why he fell to the dark side, how he can choose his own destiny, and where they go from here. Once Anakin was fully himself again, they would have rendezvoused with Yoda, where Yoda would have discussed how everything went during the Senate chamber fight. Once they were all together, Anakin would probably tell them all everything he knows about the Emperor's plan and what's next. At this point, the Jedi have been basically wiped out, so they would probably all go into hiding together. Now, would Yoda be as forgiving as Obi-Wan and Padme for everything Anakin did? I think in this situation, yes, because they need him very badly. Anakin is not only extremely powerful in the Force, he has an idea of what the Emperor plans to do. Whenever they do go into hiding, they're going to start building the rebellion from outside the Senate and from inside, because they still have allies on the inside. Eventually, the Empire would shift away from the clones just like they did in canon, and that's when Anakin could recruit a lot of the clones that feel terrible about everything that happened. Not only would Anakin recruit the clones, he'd also find Ahsoka. This is going to be really the base of the rebellion. Now you might be wondering, well, what would Palpatine do since he just lost his apprentice that he's been grooming for years? Well, Darth Maul's still alive. Darth Maul is extremely powerful and he's a very good duelist. So Palpatine would probably just bring him back as his apprentice and continue training him. Now Padme, she probably would have left the Senate and went into hiding with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, having their children and surviving childbirth. You gotta remember, Anakin's fall was one of the main reasons that she actually just let go and died. Luke and Leia would have been raised in hiding, but studying the Force under people like Yoda, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I still think Yoda would have became one with the Force later on, much like he did in the original trilogy. Then I think later on, Obi-Wan also would have died and become one with the Force, fighting Darth Maul, because Darth Maul at this point would be a lot more trained in the dark side under Palpatine. Now the death of Obi-Wan would bring up a lot of emotion for Anakin, and he might start to fall to the dark side once again, but this time his children are there to keep him grounded. Eventually, whenever the time was right, Anakin, Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia would be confronting the Emperor, Darth Maul, and Grand Admiral Thrawn. Anakin would likely die fighting the Emperor, but taking him with him, bringing balance to the Force and saving the galaxy. You gotta remember, the forgiveness for Anakin is probably very situational because they need him. I think Luke and Leia would probably be the ones fighting Darth Maul, while Anakin and Ahsoka are taking on the Emperor and Grand Admiral Thrawn. During that fight, they would probably see Anakin die. This would bring up a lot for Luke, and he would probably start to get extremely angry and start using some dark side abilities that his father taught him. Maul would notice this and just continue to poke and prod and bring out the darkness within Luke. Eventually, Luke and Leia would defeat Darth Maul, but Thrawn would escape. Luke would probably notice Thrawn escaping and would decide to follow him, just letting that darkness and that rage take control. Maybe because Thrawn distracted Anakin a little bit, just enough for the Emperor to find a killing blow. Whenever Luke chases Thrawn, most likely he would have been captured and tortured for years, falling further and further into darkness. Assuming Leia still meets Han, this leads me to what I think the sequels would have been, which would have been Ahsoka, Leia and Han's children going after Thrawn to get Luke back and bring him back from his darkness. That makes the main villain Thrawn and kind of Luke Skywalker, which in the end they probably would bring him back. And then from there, they just rebuild the Jedi Order and the galaxy's at peace. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think would happen if Obi-Wan brought Anakin back from the darkness on Mustafar. If you love Star Wars as much as I do, make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be bringing a lot more Star Wars content in the future. I appreciate you for watching and may the Force be with you.